So welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Joanna Albala. I'm the Science Education Program Manager at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and I'm joined today by Dr. Giampaolo Carosi, who'd like to introduce himself to you.
Yeah, hi there. I'm a staff physicist here. I do high energy particle physics at Lawrence Livermore. And for the last few years, Joanna and I have been spearheading this SAGE high school summer camp.
And I also want to acknowledge Mildred Langbrecht, who's behind the scenes helping us coordinate for the SAGE program. And today we're going to give an information session about this year's SAGE summer camp at Lawrence Livermore Lab. So when GP is ready to start sharing. So our camp this year is going to be held from July 9th to July 15th. And it will be on site at Lawrence Livermore National Lab in Livermore, California on the weekdays. So next slide, please. What are we going to cover today? Well, first we want to say welcome again and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. We're going to talk a little bit about the SAGE mission, the Lawrence Livermore National Lab SAGE Summer Camp, the application process, and the My SAGE Journey program. Next slide, please. So what is SAGE? SAGE stands for Science Accelerating Girls Engagement. SAGE is a week-long summer camp aimed at high school women and gender underrepresented groups to introduce them to STEM opportunities at national laboratories. SAGE aims to foster innovation, grow the STEM community, and engage intelligent, creative, and passionate young women in the everyday life of scientists and engineers. Next slide. So the SAGE mission is stated to engage curious and passionate young women and empower them to explore a wide range of possibilities for their future. So SAGE Camp was founded at SLAC, the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center, in 2018, and they founded the SAGE Camp with a traditional residential or overnight camp. And over the last few years, they've expanded to include 6 national labs across the country, hosting students for either residential or day camps. Our camp at Lawrence Livermore is going to be an in-person day camp, again hosted in Livermore, California. Next slide. So the Lawrence Livermore National Lab mission statement for our SAGE Summer Camp is to excite young women and students of other genders underrepresented in STEM careers to learn more about the science and technology opportunities at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. The goals of our camp are to support a cohort of about 20 students to have a shared STEM learning experience, show that STEM fields offer diverse opportunities and career paths, and to encourage students to be part of a larger STEM community. Next slide.
Yeah, so I'll take over this part right now. So the LLNL SAGE camp, we're looking for students to learn about the lab community here at Livermore and experience a typical day for a Department of Energy scientist or engineer. The students will be able to see how STEM allows them to explore and balance many interests. Students will meet professionals at various stages of their career, both in informal settings such as lunch discussions and lab tours. And then the students are also going to connect with peers with similar interests and become part of a larger SAGE community. One of the main goals of the program is to really introduce you to a wide variety of scientists and try to change the typical mindset of what people might think a scientist is, ensure that it's a very well balanced career path. Okay, so SAGE is not a typical science camp. The goal is not really just to focus just on the science, but also talk about careers and change mindsets so that you can see a future of yourself in a STEM field. The daily activities, and we're going to go through them in a little more depth, include job shadowing, professional skills development, career talks by scientists, and behind-the-scenes tours. There's also some more traditional hands-on projects that the students will be able to go through. And I'll show an example of what the layout of the camp schedule will be. So that's what we have right here. The camp actually kicks off with a virtual welcome ceremony on Sunday, July 9th. This is to orient everybody, get everybody ready to come to the camp at Livermore. We are a day camp, so we expect folks to come get dropped off or drive out to the camp and then head out in the evening every day, unlike a residential camp. Monday, we'll start by getting everybody badged at the Westgate badge office, and then we'll have breakfast with ambassadors. Those are scientists that are volunteering to be active, essentially as camp counselors to join each cohort. We'll then go around the lab and do job shadowing, in which you'll be able to interact with scientists and engineers, talk about what they do in their daily activities, and see where they work, what their everyday life's like. After a short break, we then get career talks where scientists come in and we'll talk about their journey to where they are right now. And that'll be everywhere from, postdocs that are just starting their career all the way up to our lab director. After a lunch, we're also going to have a project. Those projects will rotate every day. Every day you'll have a new project to work on. They'll be self-contained projects. An example from last year is we had a 3D printing project where people built their own, designed and built their own bookmarks. There'll be a snack break, and then finally we'll end with professional growth. And professional growth is kind of a unique thing for SAGE. We talk about different aspects of growth mindset and ways to build yourself up in a way that is not just for STEM, but any kind of career path. And that builds throughout the whole 5 days with different lesson plans. So what kind of student are we looking for? We're essentially looking for students that are curious, interested, and have potential in STEM. We're looking for problem solvers, highly motivated students. One thing that's slightly different than ordinary science camps is we're looking for folks that may not be committed to a STEM career path. We're not really looking for the president of the astronomy club or folks that already have their STEM or engineering career laid out and they know they want to go to grad school. We're looking for people that maybe are interested in it, but perhaps they are more invested in sports or music or arts or other things. But we're trying to see if they would be open to a potential STEM career. We're also looking for folks that may have limited exposure to STEM learning opportunities or role models. So we encourage students who typically may not attend a summer camp due to financial circumstances or have been historically underrepresented. This is a free summer camp, so once you're dropped off, we will have snacks, lunches provided, everything else will be provided. You just have to be dropped off, picked up. We value diverse perspectives, backgrounds, and experiences to enrich the interdisciplinary subject exploration that happens at Livermore. So eligibility. So students will need to be under 18 years of age throughout the time of the camp. So if they turn 18 directly at the camp, that's fine. But during the camp, they'll have to be under 18. So we're looking for essentially current 9th grade, 10th grade, or 11th grade students to apply. And they should be enrolled in a Northern California public high school or homeschooled. Let's see, I think here's the application process itself. So this is what students will need to do. They'll need to submit an application. You can go to our internal website here, which will guide you through that process. It's linked and we'll pass out the slides later. You'll have to open a free account with Kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope is the actual program that hosts the questionnaire. There'll be 2 essay questions, and then you'll also need to solicit a recommendation from a counselor, a coach, a teacher, or a supervisor, somebody who knows you well, knows what your passions might be, knows that you're motivated and can speak to that aspect of you. We'll go through at the very end of this what the actual application looks like, and feel free to ask us any questions about it. So some key dates to keep in mind. The application process is now open. It opened January 16th, so please apply. The application process will be open for essentially 2 months till March 15th. Recommendation letters, so that's the applications for students will close on March 15th, but the recommendation letters can arrive up to a week later. Students will be notified if they've been admitted to the camp by May 15th. And then, of course, the camp will start July 9th. So I'll hand this back over to Joanna to talk about SAGE Journey.
Sure. Thanks, GP. So the SAGE Camp is just the first step in the SAGE journey. We also host monthly events online. on a range of different topics that are career oriented, like resume building or how to get an internship, or some are just really interesting science talks. And this way, as a SAGE alumni, you're connected to the entire SAGE network and still have access to resources that we hope to provide on your STEM journey. The next step in the SAGE journey is possible internship opportunities at different DOE national labs. Now, here in Northern California, there are 4 national laboratories, and just because you started your SAGE journey at Livermore with a SAGE camp doesn't mean that you couldn't go to Berkeley for a SAGE internship. So the idea is that you're building network and connections into the national lab system to learn about the science and technology at each lab and what you might be interested in as you pursue your academic career leading to your next profession. And then finally, the hope is that you will continue to do internships at different national labs or the same lab, and that will ultimately turn into a STEM job, and you'd be a STEM professional, whether that's at an after receiving an undergraduate degree or a graduate degree. The national labs are here for you, and you can see the link to the website to learn more. Next slide. So along with finding out more about My Sage Journey at mysagejourney.org, you can find us on social media and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And these are great ways to find out, like, oh, this is the weekend of the Sage Live event, and learn more about when applications are open or internship opportunities are available once you're a Sage alumni. Next slide.
Yeah, I wanted to actually mention real quickly before we go through the application process. The SAGE Live events are a mixture of both science presentations and sometimes professional development, like how to write a resume or how to network, that kind of thing. So they typically go back and forth between science talks and development talks. So now I'm going to talk about, a little about the actual application process itself. So we have the link there in the top, and that'll bring you to Kaleidoscope. What you'll do is you'll make a register and then start with the begin here, that begin link. That brings you to all the questions and drop-down menus. You'll enter personal information. This is pretty standard stuff, just location, and then yes/no questions that we'll need to know, which are if you're going to be under 18 years of age at the end of the camp, and that you're going to be vaccinated, given we're still under COVID restrictions at the lab. Now here's where you're going to enter academic information and extracurricular information. So kind of what you're doing right now, what your current grade level is, and then how do you spend your time out of the classroom, like hobbies, extracurricular activities, outside job, volunteer work. And like we said, a lot of this is to emphasize, we want to make sure that people don't focus on STEM activities, because that's not really what we're looking for. We want to make sure that you have an active life outside of school, things that you're interested in, just to kind of learn and get to know you. A couple of questions like, would you be first generation college student? How did you hear at the camp? Some of this is just for us to kind of tweak our system and make it better for outreach. Family information is also very helpful. Adding this gives us an idea of what your personal setting is. If there's any family members that are scientists, engineers, that sort of thing. And then, of course, the short answers to the various questions. Describe a situation that may be a challenging situation where you shared a different viewpoint with a group based on your experience, and then how you might have addressed that. And then also, ways that you demonstrated a drive for learning new things, and how you maybe applied these new abilities to problem solving. And then we have some self-reporting data. Ethnicity is optional. It's just used for internal, demographic and statistical analysis. Don't have to put it if you don't feel comfortable. And then the recommendation request itself. Now here, I want to spend a moment, because I just want to make sure we have the process right for folks. The idea is that you're going to put, you the student, will add the recommender's first name, last name, and email address. So you want to talk to whoever you want to write you the letter, let them know about that, let them know, ask them what their preferred email is, because the email is the key thing. You have to have that correctly written in there, because what will happen is they will receive a request, an email from Kaleidoscope to have them log in and use their username to start, to have their registration set up so that they can apply their recommendation letter. If there's any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us. And with that, I think we can conclude. Please apply today. Everything's open. We'd love to see you on there. And I'd like to open it up for any questions that people might have. And maybe Joanna, if you can monitor the chat. I know we don't have the mics open or anything. I should say we had a lot of fun last year. It was a good time. We have a really nice open campus. Lots of good food, a lot of fun projects. Any questions in the chat?
We don't have any questions so far.
There's one. What is the acceptance rate? It's a good question. I think last year, correct me if I'm wrong, Joanna, I think it was about 50%, maybe a little bit less than 50%. We had, I think, 40 or so applicants for Livermore, and then we accepted about 20. This year, I think we're aiming for 24 students. Try to expand a little bit. And that's really just a limitation of the number of volunteers and size.
There's another question about, is the recommendation a form or a letter?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think in the Kaleidoscope, and then Mildred could correct me if I'm wrong, I think they can cut and paste directly into the Kaleidoscope here. So I think I don't see an option for an attachment or anything like that. So I think it'll just be, they'll fill out the recommendation information there, which is pretty straightforward. Just what the relationship is, coach, teacher, whatnot, and then just the message, the recommendation message.
And so that recommendation message is really like the body of the letter.
That's the letter, yeah.
So the other thing we didn't mention is that since transportation isn't provided, we do hope that maybe you'll apply with friends and other students from your school. So you're kind of bringing your own community to the SAGE community. And that also allows for the possibility of some carpooling. But if that's not possible and there are students from the same area, we can try to connect you for carpooling. And we also had 2 students that came from Stockton to Livermore every day on the ACE train. And we picked them up at the ACE train station. So we can work out issues of transport if that's a problem.
There's a question on, do we get instructions on email on how to apply? I think the slides that we have here, thank you, Mildred. Yeah, you can go look at the webpage link there. Mildred, do you want to put the email, the STEM Education Office email also, if there's questions? And I think for those that registered today, we'll send you the slides. So you'll have the slide deck and they have links in them as well.
Excellent. Additional questions? Does anybody who didn't in the beginning tell us what school you're from or how you heard about us care to share? We're really excited that you've joined us and we'd like to know how you learned about SAGE. And of course, any last questions? So I'm going to stop recording. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, anybody who wants to give us some information about what high school they're from, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time, and we hope to see you at SAGE.
Thanks, everybody.